Thank you so much for coming back. New video, new series of stories while playing Minecraft. First story. My husband poops too much for me to consider getting pregnant again. I, 32F, and my husband, 41M, have been married for 6 years and together for 9. We have a 5-year-old boy. We're having lots of couples problems that we go to therapy for. In short, I feel he lacks a sense of competence and initiative in our relationship. I've been growing so much resentment towards him, especially after our first baby. We are in therapy to work through it together. But here's the thing. He has a bathroom habit where he poops every morning during our toddler's wake up, breakfast, every afternoon after lunch, and every evening during bath and bedtime, which makes him unavailable during the most demanding times of the day. Each bathroom session is 45 minutes to an hour long. I also know he can change his timing, apparently on command, because when we need to be out, he somehow finds a way to do it earlier, to do it later, or not do it at all. Though I don't know how much that affects him. We both work full-time. I'm almost always the one to wake up the baby and get him ready for preschool. He may drive our son to school after I've readied him. He knows I've been delaying family planning because of his uncertainties around work. He's looking to change job for the last 2 years. Now that he's finally stabilized in his new role, and when I bring up the topic of another baby, he always says it depends on me. My son asks for a baby sister because all his friends have baby sisters. His response is, it depends on mommy. But it doesn't. The issues, lack of awareness, proactivity, and needing me to tell him to do everything, or else he just doesn't feel he needs to be involved or present. I have with him from our first baby, I believe it means the issues. The issues I have with him from our first baby is still unresolved. And I don't see how I can manage 2 kids while he's gone for the most busy times of each day. Yes, I also think about if I should even think about having another baby with him. I want to have 2 kids because we have limited family, and I want to make sure my son has someone who is family when he gets older. But let's assume I want to keep this relationship. I asked him to go to a doctor and talk about his frequent bowel movements. He said he did before, and it was normal. I feel like he prioritizes himself and his needs before our families, because he seems to be able to adjust when he goes out, but as a default, he seemingly chooses the busiest times of the day to do it. When I ask him straight up how we're supposed to have a newborn when he's gone for 3 hours every day at the most critical times, he said his parents can take care of the baby. His parents live 2 hours away, 2 hours drive away. It's not a come over and help once in a while situation. This is a multi-year, if not lifelong daily need I require from him. And his first response is someone else can do it. It makes me so sad and disappointing that this is his first and only solution. I honestly don't know what he can propose, but I wanted him to see that his unavailability is a concern of mine, and put in some thought. I can't stop him from pooping. It's not like we have a room or I have the will to house his mom for 3 years to make up for my husband's need to poop. It's not like she wants to live with us for 3 years. And this is just one specific concern. There are plenty of other concerns. I don't know how to talk about this concern without feeling dismissed, but also not making him feel like I won't let him poop. For more context, he has hemorrhoids, so bowel movement is not as simple. He refuses to talk more about it. He does have very bad hemorrhoids, and I know he's in pain. and I know he's definitely having a bowel movement. But maybe it doesn't need to be those specific times and lengths. The phone is definitely not helping. Okay, this is a very interesting story. I never thought I would be reacting to a story that involved poop and pregnancy. It happens in labor, in some women, but this is a whole different ball game for me, a whole different context. I have some theories about this story because I can't have a certain solution, but I have some theories. I will try to structure my feedback as a medical professional. Is it normal for someone to have a bowel movement 2 to 3 times a day, every day? Yes, it is very normal. Bowel movement is really on a spectrum, like a range. Everything within that spectrum are healthy for the most part. Some need to have a bowel movement twice a day, some twice a week, or twice every 10 days. They're both normal. As long as there is no effect on diet schedule, there is no pain, there is no bloating, there is no burns, no bleeding, it's normal. Now, is it normal to have a bowel movement, a normal bowel movement, that extends for 1 hour or 45 minutes every single time? And the answer is no. It's not normal. Considering he says he went to the doctor and he said it's normal is just wild. Now here's where things get weird. You said he has hemorrhoids. For those who don't know, which I'm sure pretty much all of you know, hemorrhoids are basically extremely dilated superficial veins that are around, I don't want to give too much information because I'm trying to keep a certain vibe in these videos. And these dilated veins are caused by many reasons, including chronic straining. And if he's staying 1 hour every single time, his hemorrhoids are gonna get really, really bad because of that, which is more than likely the reason why his hemorrhoids are getting really bad. So what is going on here? What is happening? I have 2 theories. One, he's just using the toilet adventures every day as a way to unwind and distract himself from you and from your 5-year-old son. Can I confirm that? Can I say this is 100% the case? No. This is just a guess, or maybe more of a deduction. You said you're going to therapy because of issues like his incompetence, his lack of initiative. That's exhibit A. You said that sometimes his schedule gets either delayed or removed completely. That's exhibit B. You also said that his immediate thought when you asked who's going to take care of the second baby you're having, and he said, my parents, which is wild because his parents, considering your age and his age, are probably pushing 60s or 70s, and he has no problem to let them take care of his own child. That is exhibit C. If he needs to go to the toilet 3 times a day, he's not going to change that schedule just because he's out or because he's busy. Bowel movements are controlled by autonomic nervous system. Once it starts, there is no stopping, there is no rescheduling. It is gonna happen. So, based on this theory, my instinct says he is having his quote-unquote him time, and he's using the toilet as an excuse. But I could be wrong, which is why I want to mention the second theory. This man might be in excruciating pain every time he has a bowel movement, and it's getting worse every time because of all the straining and all the pain he's going through. And he's just doing his best to channel his inner masculine urge to hide the pain from you and from his 5-year-old son. What do you guys think? Maybe I'm missing something here. Please tell me so. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend her adopted son should be raised as an American and not as Vietnamese? My friend Kayla F. adopted a baby from Vietnam 3 years ago. I was happy for her, but she's taking the honoring his heritage thing to an absolutely insane level. She only feeds him Vietnamese food, sends him to Vietnamese language classes, decorated his entire room in cultural items, only buys him Vietnamese clothes. She's basically trying to make this kid as Vietnamese as possible. But here's the thing. Kayla is white, and she's raising this kid in Texas with no actual Vietnamese people around. She doesn't even speak Vietnamese herself, but she forces the kid to learn it. The kid is now 5. He cries during language lessons, refuses to eat some of the food, but she forces it because it's important he connects with his culture. I finally said something. I told her she's going overboard and maybe just let the kid be a kid. She got defensive, saying she's honoring his birth culture. I said, Kayla, he's being raised by a white woman in Austin, Texas. He's not really Vietnamese in any meaningful way. You're forcing an identity on him that doesn't match his actual life. She lost it. She called me a racist, said I don't understand transracial adoption. I said there is a difference between teaching him about culture and forcing him to live like he's an American kid who happens to be ethnically from Vietnam. Am I the a-hole? If the kid is living in Texas and she's taking him to Vietnamese language lessons, even though she doesn't speak Vietnamese, this is going to obliterate his language skills. He's basically going to learn a language that no one speaks around him at such a critical time, where he is supposed to learn American English and to learn their expressions. I'm not against him. I'm not against him learning about his culture, but culture only makes sense if you get to connect with people who share the same culture as you do. Even if it was just parents, even if it was the parents or the mother and the father. But in this case, it is doing more harm than good. There are millions of first-generation Asian Americans, Latin Americans, Arab Americans who are proud to be Americans. They learned the American culture when they were young, and as they were getting older, like 10 years, 11 years old, they started learning about their homeland and their traditions, etc. But to force a 5-year-old child into such rigorous cultural enrichment is pretty wild. So here's what I would say. You're not the a-hole, but I could have phrased your concern in a more relatable and more pleasant way. Maybe slightly the a-hole, but for the most part, you're not. Next story. Am I in the wrong for flagging a digital employee that gets paid but doesn't exist to HR? I, 34 am a data analyst for a pretty small-sized logistics firm somewhere in the countryside. It is the kind of job where if you do your work well, nobody talks to you. And quite frankly, no one cares about you either. And at this point, if it pays the bills and makes my kids and my wife live a good life, I don't care either. 3 months ago, I was tasked with a system migration. I had to audit every active user in our database to port them over to the new cloud server. That's when I found James. According to the system, James is a senior project manager in my department. He has a company email, a generous salary, and full benefits. But here's the thing. James doesn't work with us. I'm not saying he clocks in then he leaves. I mean it's just a PIN name. I checked his login pings. The last time James signed into his VPN was October 14th, 2022. Since then, zero. Not a single email sent, not a single file touched, not a single Slack message. For 3 years, James has been a digital employee collecting a 6-figure paycheck. Well, I don't know if it's a glitch, maybe he's a hacker or he's someone with us. Now, I'm not a narc. Normally I would mind my business, but the migration wouldn't finalize the new database because his profile didn't have full credentials to move to the cloud. If I didn't report it, the system would flag an error under my name. I went to my manager, I phrased it professionally. Hey, I found a discrepancy with a user named James. It looks like his account hasn't been active in 3 years, and I need to know if I should deprovision him for the migration. Her face didn't just go pale. She told me, leave it alone, and she would handle it. 2 weeks later, James was still there, still getting paid. So thinking I was helping the company save $200,000 a year, I escalated it to HR as a potential payroll error. I expected a thank you, at least. What I got was an invite to a mandatory compliance meeting last Tuesday. I walked in, and it wasn't just HR. It was legal and private auditor. They didn't ask me about James. They asked me how I found James. They started basically investigating with me on why I was snooping in the database outside of my assigned parameters. They accused me of unauthorized data mining and creating a hostile work environment by investigating my superiors. I almost pooped myself. That was quite the escalation, I said. I'm not mining anything. I'm doing my job that you pay me for. You literally wanted me to move our database to the cloud. James hasn't logged in since COVID restrictions were still applied here. And you're treating me like the criminal. Who is he? Is he a relative? Is he a bribe? Because right now, it looks like I'm the only person in this room who's actually working and I'm being punished for it. The room went silent. The legal rep just said, we are placing you on administrative leave while we investigate your breach of data protocol. I was escorted by security. My badge was deactivated. Am I in the wrong here? My background is mostly medical, so this corporate legal stuff feels way above my pay grade. But I have watched Suits, and I've watched lots of financial crimes on YouTube. So that gives me like some qualifications, I guess. Here's what I would assume. I would assume your boss and the guys from HR might be in on something, like money laundering activity. Or they're just funneling money from the company to an offshore bank account that might or might not belong to someone real. It feels weird that they're all quite familiar with the information. Because from my experience, such financial crimes usually involve 1 or 2 people maximum. Having so many people complicit in it makes it insignificant, since we're not talking millions here. We're not talking like 50 millions or 60 millions getting siphoned away. No, it's just 200,000 a year. So if they divide it like 5-6 people, whatever, it's nothing. Unless it's not just James. Unless you only scraped at the surface of their fraudulent activity and there are other fake employees you didn't know about. Which, to be honest, kind of makes sense, because their immediate reaction was you went above your jurisdiction, because they thought you found out about it through maybe other confidential sources or some hacking, which you didn't. You said it's the actual database that contains information about all employees. This is a juicy story. I'm very, very invested in this. But on a second note, don't pursue this further. Drop it completely. Apologize for doing that, even though you did nothing wrong. Some of you guys might be listening and thinking that you should talk to the police, you should talk to freaking IRS or whatever. Trust me. If this is real, and you basically unraveled some fraudulent criminal activity, they won't leave you alone. This is not some Guy Ritchie movie with Jason Statham. where you're gonna take down an entire network of crimes and criminals. You're a normal guy. You're trying to make a living. Act the part. This has nothing to do with being a coward. It just means you're smart enough to not think that you can cut through a mountain with a freaking sledgehammer. I'm sorry it happened to you, but the best thing to do right now is to apologize and just move on. Next story. Am I in the wrong for simply not wanting to work past my working hours? I work in one of those hustle culture offices where if you aren't staying until 7 p.m., you're basically considered part-time. It's a high-pressure environment, and for some reason my co-workers take pride in their burnout, as if they are the exterminator. You mean the Terminator? Who's the exterminator? Okay. They brag about how many coffees they've had or how they haven't seen their kids all week. I'm the outlier. I get in at 8:59 a.m. and I'm out of the door exactly 5 p.m. I'm efficient, I hit all my targets, and my work is always done. I have a life outside of that building. I have personal projects, a cooking hobby I'm really passionate about, and frankly, I just value my sanity. I don't want to be one of those guys that gets IBS and hair loss from working like a mule. A few days ago, my manager Devin pulled me into his office. He didn't have any complaints about my actual performance, but he told me my lack of commitment was starting to bring down the team. He said that when the rest of the department sees me leaving on the dot while they're still grinding, it creates a disconnect in the company culture. I told him that as long as my work is finished, my time after 5 p.m. belongs to me. He just gave me that disappointed dad look and said he hoped I would become more of a team player. Fast forward to yesterday at around 4:45 p.m. One of my co-workers, we'll call her Jada, came over to my desk looking frantic. Apparently her car wouldn't start in the parking garage, and the tow truck was going to be there in 20 minutes. She asked if I could stay an hour late to cover the phones and finish up a filing task for her so she could go deal with the mechanic. Under normal circumstances, I might have helped, but I had a specialized hobby class starting at 5:30 p.m. that I had already paid for. It's expensive. They have a strict no late entry policy, and it's the highlight of my week. I told her, I'm sorry Jada, I really can't today. I have a prior commitment I have already paid for. She looked stunned. She said, it's just an hour and I'm literally stranded. I pointed out that there were 6 other people in the office who were planning on staying until 8 p.m. anyway, and they could easily keep an eye on her desk. She started crying, saying she didn't want to ask for help because they would just tell her no. I didn't budge. I finished my last email, packed my bag, and walked out at 5 p.m. sharp. This morning, the atmosphere is freezing. Jada won't look at me, and 2 other co-workers made comments in the break room about some people only caring about themselves. Last time I checked, work should make your life better, but if work is gonna take a dump on your life, I'm starting to picture myself as this hamster on his wheel. My boss asked me to talk about that incident, and I simply told him my work was done. Her car issues are not my responsibility, and I shouldn't have to lose money on a class I enjoy because she didn't want to ask the people who were already staying late. So am I the wrong one here? Absolutely not. I like you. We both think alike. When I was younger, like 18 years, 17 years for my first job, I used to think if I worked harder in these specific office-ish jobs and covered for people, I would simply climb the ladder and eventually make more money. Fortunately, I learned that at a young age that this is not the case. If anything, everyone will exploit that, and you won't be compensated for crap. What you give as a favor, initially, will become a duty that you must fulfill at all times. The majority of humans are greedy to the bones. They don't care about you. They don't care about your life. They see you as a pawn that is going to bring them more money. Pawns in chess are not that valuable. You have 8 of them. You can lose 4 of them and life would move on. Every single thing you did during this encounter was surgically perfect. You're not in the wrong here. Ask your boss, ask this Devon guy. Tell him this: if you want me to stay after my work hours, I want to get paid extra for those hours. And I want to get a heads up before, at least a day before. Pay me a good amount and I will work. But to work like a farm mule for the same salary as some Gotham City dystopian shit. You're not in the wrong, brother. You just happen to be working for a real life version of Mr. Krabs, basically. Keep up the good work. Good luck. Next story. I, 26F, have a sister. Let's call her Phoebe, just so you don't get confused. She's 30F, who has always had an expensive taste but a budget income. For her 30th birthday, I wanted to do something truly legendary. For years, she talked about this specific designer leather purse. It's a classic piece, the kind that lasts a lifetime. I'm not rich. I work a standard office job, so buying a $1,200 bag wasn't a casual purchase. I spent 6 months eating meal prepped beans and rice, skipping nights out and putting aside every spare cent to afford it. When I finally went to the store to buy it, I felt so proud. On her birthday, Phoebe opened the box and actually screamed. She hugged me, she cried, and immediately started taking photos of it for her story. She told me it was the best gift she has ever received in her entire life, and that she would cherish it forever. Honestly, seeing her that happy made the 6 months of budgeting feel totally worth it. You're a good woman, lady. Fast forward exactly 2 weeks. I'm scrolling Instagram and see a post from Phoebe's best friend, Lauren. It's a get ready with me video, and sitting right there on her table is the exact bag I bought for Phoebe. I thought, that's weird. I could have dropped it, but something felt fishy. I texted Phoebe, hey, did Lauren get the same bag as you? You guys are twins. Phoebe didn't reply for 3 hours. When she finally did, she was weirdly defensive. She said, actually, I let her have it. I realized I wouldn't use it as much as I thought, and she really wanted it. I was confused. You let her have a $1,200 bag. Phoebe, I worked overtime for months for that. Then the truth came out. Phoebe didn't give it to her. She sold it to Lauren for $800. Why? Because her boyfriend wanted to go on a last-minute weekend trip to a music festival, and Phoebe was broke. She literally pawned my sacrifice so she could drink beer in an open field for 48 hours. I lost it. I told her that if she didn't want the bag, she should have been honest with me. I could have returned it to the store, gotten my full $1,200 back, and maybe given her $200 as a smaller gift, while keeping the rest of my hard-earned savings. Instead, she wasted $400 of my money and treated a milestone gift like a quick cash grab. She called me controlling and toxic for monitoring her belongings, and said I was acting like I owned her because I spent money on her. She said, when you give someone a gift, it's theirs. I didn't ask you for the bag, you bought it for me. Imagine you gave me the money instead of the bag. It's literally the same. So, am I the wrong one for being furious that she sold her gift for vacation cash? So, neither of you are in the wrong here, but obviously, as usual, to varying degrees. And I'll explain this in an example. If I give someone a camera, they always want it, and they use it for a couple of weeks, and then they sell it and give the money to someone or use the money themselves, I wouldn't care about it. After I gave them that gift, it belongs to them. As long as they're not deliberately destroying it or anything like that, like trashing it, I don't care. Do what you want. Now, I understand your point of view. You're not just thinking about the lost money. You see the long hours you worked and all the savings you forced yourself to do just to buy her that bag. And overnight, she decides to throw that away. I feel you're upset about the failed, unappreciated gesture. Now, personally, I would never sell a gift that was given to me. I like holding on to things that have a spiritual aspect. I have, right next to me, I have an iPad Mini 2 that was given to me as a gift in 2020. Bear in mind, iPad Mini 2 in 2020 is unsupported. So in 2026, it's literally like almost a brick. But I still use it to this day. I study using the very same iPad that I've gotten in 2020. I could throw the iPad and buy a Xiaomi or a newer iPad, but I feel it was given to me by someone who thought it was a very good gift. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, humans are not the same. We treat gifts, we treat sentimental objects differently. Don't be upset she sold it. Life goes on. Obviously, it's up to you if you want to gift her something like that or not in the future. Maybe you can't tolerate this, which is the reason why you don't want to give her gifts in the future. But regardless of anything, you are a very good woman. Don't forget that. Don't let that incident change the way you think. Yeah, that's a very beautiful story. Maybe not that beautiful, but there's something to learn from it, which I think is the last story in today's video. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. Take care. Good night.